I've been told, back in the 50s when I was a teenager, that I was A square, which means, sort of a boring nerd.
Ladies, gentlemen, them, they, and all, it's showtime! Ha-ha! Although, when we do say showtime, we do use that term very loosely, as what we've got in store for you today, well, our presenters have really no idea what they're gonna say because they're all unprepared. So strap yourselves in and brace yourself as the Some Nobodies present PowerPoint Showdown. So start that round of applause as we welcome this week's keynote speaker.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for our conference. Now, tonight you're going to be hearing the 4 professionals discussing our topic, time. Now, with me as always, we have D.
Yeah.
Don't have time for that, huh?
Nope.
Idiot.
That's what it stands for.
Perfect. Also, clearly, every single week we have Mr. Michael Colby. How are you, sir?
Great. I don't understand. I put a lot of work into these slides. I don't know why the puppet in the intro says that we're unprepared.
Yeah.
Because I do a lot of work for this show. It's insulting, really.
Yeah. No,
I mean,
know.
he's just bitter because he has a hand up his ass, so don't take it personal.
That's true. You really can't trust any puppets. Who knows what's going on back there? Now, I had to find somebody that knows a lot about time, and comedian Mollie Heckerling has spent some time looking at time. Is that true? I heard you were a professional in time.
Oh, yeah. I've known time for a long time, and, we've spent oodles of itself together, and, sometimes I just like to sit and watch it go by, because I'll never get it back, but whatever, you have to let what you love go, and if it doesn't come back, then fuck you. So yes.
See, and that's why Mollie's a friggin' professional here and knows a lot about time. That's what we're going to get into. Now, for those who are joining us for the very first time, each speaker will be given roughly 10 minutes to present our topic of the week, time. It's a mysterious subject, turns out. Now, after each presentation, there'll be a quick, short, and fast question and answer from the panel. And of course, we invite all members of the audience to ask as many questions as humanly possible. We will get to each one of them in order as first come, first serve. And after the 4th presentation, the panelists will vote to see on which speaker should be awarded the $50,000 scholarship presented to Some Nobodies University from Some Nobodies Patreon members for anybody who's winning this, and the Nostalgia Prize of the week. What's true?
No, does this come with a Pell Grant or a Hugh Grant or anything?
Yeah, it's a Terry Grant.
Hugh Grant did go to Some Nobodies University, but
that's true.
He failed out.
He didn't get the towel.
He thought he was going somewhere else, and GPS lied to him.
That's true. And also, obviously, the Nostalgia Prize of the week, which comes from our Patreon member Shaquille Oatmeal. And this week, it turns out to be it's a New Hope. It's a book, but also a pillow, which is weird.
And you can also take it into the bathtub.
Huh.
Yeah, it's also probably a sponge too, depending. But it's a very weird thing. So thank you guys. If you want to submit some prizes, you can also check out Some Nobody's Patreon. Now, listen, guys, we have some ados, and I'm going to mess them up. So let's just skip them and get on with my presentation. So, producers, please bring up my slides because I got to teach you guys some stuff about time. Now, time. Once earlier, I said it was mysterious. Because what is it? It doesn't really work the way people think it does. I have a watch, but that watch only works here on Earth. Now, some things that I really want to teach you guys is some info about time. We're going to get into it. So here's my presentation on time. Some info. Next slide, please. Now, obviously, it's a complicated topic, time. Number one, I've attempted to simplify a basic explanation of time, and I can only hope to dumb it down enough for all of you. I tried to write out what it is, and it's just too long. I don't have that much time. Like I said earlier, I got 10 minutes. Now, most of you guys watching are idiots, and that's why you tune in to learn something. And I don't have time to break it down the way that I need to. So let's go on number 2, which is, in order to do so, I have prepared the most comprehensible 100% original diagrams. I did that for you without taking up too much time. And number 3, I will adjust my narration in such as a way to make this presentation understandable to the layman. So in case you can't understand it, I'm really going to dumb it down to you. And that means if I have to do accents or whatever I seem fit per slide is what I'm going to do. So next slide, please. Let me see how I can dumb this down more. The mechanics of time and mechanics and perception of time. Listen, this is the easiest and fastest way I can simplify it. If you look, there's a clock, guys. Like if you think about time, think about a clock. And that shit goes crazy sometimes and it swirls out of control. Sometimes it's a lot of time. Sometimes a little bit of time. Like if you watch water boil, it's a lot of time. If you do the same amount of time doing something else, like just looking at the clock, it's a little bit of time. Either way, you're spending it and it's swirling around us. There's time everywhere. If you just look around, there's time. Don't look at the clock because that's the fastest way to get it out of the way. But it is a crazy maniac of just everything. You think of history, time. You think of that black hole, you just took up time. Next slide, please. I hope you guys understand this. So I'll try to break it down a little bit faster and easier. Now, time's perceived effect on the human body. I cannot break this down faster, right? You're a baby. You do shit, you die. That's time. If you can think of something you've done before you've died, which is before now, you did it in time. Remember that time you were a baby? That was time. Next slide, please. Is time real? Is it real? Or is it only a function of a perception? I've perceived time. Does that make it real? Now, I've tried to draw what I think is a diagram of a tesseract. I've been watching a lot of MCU movies, and I think this is a tesseract. I think that's the best way to actually come up with time. But as I was putting the dotted lines in here, I realized that I don't understand how to draw a fourth dimension, which I think is time in itself. And that's why I was trying to draw this to begin with. Spent a lot of time on Photoshop making this, so I left it in there. And I think it is a good way to describe how one can take up time trying to teach time. It's a dangerous and mysterious devil. And if I wasn't married, it would probably be my mistress. Like, I guess it still can. I have no idea, really. I spent a lot of time with this hussy, and that hussy is that tesseract. Next slide, please. Now, on the nature of paradox. Yeah, time, and like Dylan is probably going to say in one of his slides, it keeps on slipping. And the best way that I can draw this is by the diagram, which is Rey Skywalker, Palpatine, from The Last Jedi, when she looked at herself in the mirror, which just showed themselves throughout the course of time, which has all happened at the exact same time, because time is not only then and coming, it's also now. And I spent a lot of time right now talking about time. And that's the only way to show this. You think I've already done it. You think I've talked about time. Was that just you a second ago? Who knows? You heard it. Did I say it? Or is that your perception? Next slide, please. Is time travel possible? Well, this drawing of a car says that it might be. My imagination of the comic strip that I was drawing, this is what the car looked like that I remember seeing in a movie as a child, which I was trying to really describe what time is using something. But Dylan and the producers tell me that I can't use actual media because of copyright infringement. So I'm pretty sure this is what time looked like in 1980s. The way people looked at time was as though you had a little bit too much money, you spent on a car that didn't really matter, and then you put some fire under it, and I think that's cold lines on top of it. And that's electricity. I forgot. It's electricity. That's the best way to show time. It's electricity and fire and outdated motor vehicles. Because what says time more than a rust bucket, but they can open up its arms like a Lamborghini? Mm-hmm. Next slide, please. Are they called arms if they're on cars? I'm not a car guy. Now, listen, folks, in conclusion, I could go over time errors. I can go over timelines. I can go over everything there is about time. And I assembled a lot more slides that there was. I took a lot of time dealing with the things that I should be teaching you about time. And there's a lot of things on here that would waste your time if I described any of it. And I think that in itself is the best way to describe time. It only gets wasted. You really can't spend it doing anything purposeful. You can't do anything with it. I can't pay my rent with it. I can't put it in a bank. I can only look at it. It's like a cloud, I guess. I can only see it. I think it's happening. I'm not sure. But when I woke up, it's gone. So to me, that's what time is, really. It's just shit that's gone. It's like history, but like the boring stuff. That's time, I guess. I have no idea. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up because that's my time, actually. So that's everything that I want to teach you guys. Well, that's not everything, actually. That's just some random info that I want to teach you about time. So I will take every single question anyone has about time, at least some info about it. So thank you. Oh, Michael Colby, please.
Yeah. Thank you for your presentation. It says on this countdown timer thing that 11 minutes has gone by.
Yeah.
But your presentation felt like it took 5 hours. I was just wondering, is time like the same for everyone? Like, did that feel like 5 hours to you, or was that just to the people who had to listen to the words that were coming out of your mouth?
Well, keep in mind, you are on the East Coast and we're in Colorado. So there is a 2-hour time difference there. So please be a little smarter with your questioning, my friend. Deed, I see you had a question.
Yes. Thank you for the presentation. Towards the end, you talked about whether time travel is possible. Considering we are now currently moving through time at a rate of 1 second per second, and I can hear Michael Colby's bones creak, are you an immortal being if you don't travel through time?
That is an interesting question. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question.
Oh, please, Molly.
Do you think that when we dream, we experience a time dilation in which time actually passes differently than in the waking world?
Yes, exactly. Which is why sometimes I only take very short naps because I don't need to waste that time dreaming of something just mundane. So I like to get to the punch. You know what I mean? If I know I'm sleeping for only half an hour, it's a half an hour's worth of a dream. I want the good stuff. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for listening to my presentation on time. Some info, but obviously there's smarter people here than me. So up next, Miss Heckerling.
Hello, and thank you for coming to my TED-Word talk. How I explain the concept of time. Now, time is relative, and I fucking hate my relatives. You know what time is? It's the worst thing in the fucking world. Stephen Hawking wrote a book about time, and it fucking crippled him. And I can't even begin to go down the long list of people that time has murdered. Have you seen Ernest Borgnine in anything lately? No, you haven't. Because of time. Time is a bitch, and now I'm going to explain the concept of it because it's such an asshole that I need to do this expose so you all know just how dangerous time is. It's like rainbow fentanyl, except it's real and it will kill your children. Okay, next slide. So, table of contents. We have the calendar year, time but in larger chunks. I mean, who asked for it, right? The passage of time, but who knows how long. I mean, if I liked time at all, I would be keeping up with all its wheelings and dealings, but I don't. I don't even follow that bitch on Instagram. Fuck her. Telling time? I like to tell time what to do. It can't boss me around. I tell time. It doesn't tell me shit. Hour and a half. Where the fuck are we getting these increments? You know, give me an hour, give me 2. A half, what is that? Is it in ounces? Is it in grams? Who the fuck knows? And that's the thing about time too. You can measure it any which ways. And if there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, then that's going to be one ugly fucking cat by the time you're done. Elapsed time. That sounds like a medical condition, like a prolapsed rectum. And that's exactly how time makes you feel if you hang out with it long enough. Next slide. This is a month calendar of this month. This was obviously drawn up by the Department of Redundancy Department, and someone in my team is gonna get fucking fired. Now we got Monday. Monday's a bitch. Everyone hates Monday. Tuesday's okay because it's not as bad as Monday and all the bars aren't as packed. Wednesday is today, and today is just always a never-ending son of a bitch. You know, every day is today. You know, I've been waiting for tomorrow for 37 years. I haven't seen it. Have you? Thursday, turkey. So, you know, I like turkey. I prefer it cold because I don't have time to heat it up. And, you know, I also enjoy the bacteria that settles in over time. That's the one good thing. Maybe sometimes time develops things, but it's usually awful things. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, let's just get this bitch over with. You know, time doesn't need to last all fucking weekend. We have a smiley face that's asleep because I'm only happy when I'm asleep and I don't know the time is going by. If I don't know it's there, it doesn't bother me. I have a face that's crying that's circled in red because that's usually the de facto emotion that people have when they're dealing with time. Next slide, please. Passages of Time was the worst fucking Jane Austen novel I ever read. Everyone was so sexually repressed, they practically squirted every time they heard a carriage driving up. But anyway, in the morning, you got the early birds, right? The worm, I don't know. A lot of people have been pecking at it. I don't really want it that much. You know, I show up around noon. If the worm is there, great. And if it's not, then fuck it. And at night, I get my period. So I call that the dark wolf. And that's why, you know, I also hate time because, you know, the more time goes by, you're always at that time of the month again. Next slide. Where are the time hours on the time clock? Can someone please explain this to me? Because I've been looking at clocks my whole fucking life and I've never seen an uglier face. I mean, it's got two hands, but one's shorter than the other one. I mean, what is this thing? Fucking Johnny Tremaine? You know, I've been sitting in chairs, looking at clocks, waiting for days to be over, and I can't help but feel like this time thing is overrated. You know, everybody wishes they had more of it, but they don't even seem to like the amount of it that they have right now. So, you know, it's like asking for seconds for, you know, Chipotle that's riddled with E. coli and gives you diarrhea. That's time. So where are the clocks? I don't know, you know, QAnon's asking some very interesting questions about clocks and pizzas. I frankly don't understand or agree with any of it, but the anger is there and I respect it. Next slide. Hour and a half, retell story in full hilarity. You know, if it's an hour and a half, why isn't it in full and a half hilarity? You know, there's just so many things about time that we've yet to discover, and that's what really pisses me off. Because I'm an American and things that I don't understand make me violently angry. So time is one of them. You know, I've heard that it dilates, which sounds gross. I've heard that it doesn't really exist, in which case, you know, time is just like God. You know, if I can't see it, how the fuck do I know it's even there? So, you know, in full hilarity, I think that time should just really kill itself. I know that might sound a little harsh, but like, what's it ever done for me? So next slide. How many what? Hours you spend awake without breathing? I mean, the professionals can do all of them, and that's what makes them great. Granted, most of them died for their art, but you know, you gotta respect commitment to a bit. Minutes to brush your teeth. You know, I only brush the front of my teeth because who the hell looks at the back of them? You know, not me. So whatever. Hours you spend asleep, you know, as many as possible. I usually like to do 25, 26 hours a day of sleep, but that's just me. You know, you got to work your way up to it. Minutes to eat. Now, you know, I hate time, but I also like to save it because I'm stingy. So I prefer to eat on the toilet. Because I think that if you can like put the thing in as it's coming out, that increases efficiency. So, you know, time's not so bad as long as you can spend it really quickly so you don't realize that it's passing and you're going to die soon. So next slide. In conclusion, time is like a cat licking its balls. It doesn't really serve any purpose. It only feels good for the cat, and it's really just painful for the rest of us to sit here and watch. So, this has been my battle cry against time. I think we need to do away with it before it does away with us.
Excellent.
I wasn't expecting to go all Tucker Carlson with it, but I guess.
No, I love it. It's going to force Michael Colby to change his character.
It's a fear-mongering piece about time.
I do have some questions on your presentation, if you're taking any.
Yes.
I'll go first. Before Dylan asks, you mentioned earlier about 1,000 ways of skinning a cat, and I know that he's going to ask because that's one of his questions to everybody. But which is your favorite way to skin a cat of the 1,000 that you know about?
I like to go from the head down to the feet because then sometimes if you yank quickly enough, the paws just come off with it, and then you got yourself a little foot to wave at friends.
Okay.
Oh, God.
Yes. Dylan.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. And thank you, Zach, for asking my first question preemptively. My second question I was going to ask, there's an underthread of like not having enough time or wishing that you had less time. But if Saturday waits and Sunday always comes too late, and on Friday you never hesitate, does that not balance out to a perfect amount of time?
Well, I never come at all, so I just feel like it's unfair for me to be waiting on time when really, it should text me and let me know for sure if it's coming.
Okay, that's fair. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, you, sir.
I have a now that the rest of the questions have been asked, I have a pretty tame question. You were talking about turkey earlier, and you said that you liked it cold. I was wondering if you cooked it first and then let it get cold, because that does take more time. Or do you just eat it raw?
I like to eat it raw because, it's like warm and cold and squishy at the same time. And I don't have to waste the extra time cooking it. I'm not waiting on time. It should be waiting on me. So while I'm eating my raw turkey, let time wait on us. And then, when the salmonella kicks in, maybe I'll just shit all over it.
Yeah, then you're already on the toilet, so.
I'm already on the toilet. See, again, the saving time thing.
Okay. All right. I understand. Thank you.
Oh, I think Dylan has another question.
I'm trying to phrase it correctly.
Oh.
Pass.
Somebody brought up toilets.
I can save time, but it can't save me. So.
Oh, Mollie, perfect job. Thank you very much for teaching me some stuff that I didn't know, as you can see from my stupid slides. But yes, yours are perfect, and I would hate to go after you, but unfortunately, Dylan has to. So, Dylan, if the producers have their.
Excellent. Thank you. Yes, I am Dylan, and I'm going to be talking today about a timeline of times from the beginning of IT, or IT, to the end of this presentation's time. It being simultaneously the beginning of time and this presentation, which was a few seconds ago. This will be the timeline of my presentation, speaking on the timeline of times. And let's get onward to the next slide, please. So we're going to talk a little bit about numbers. Now, numbers can be time. Obviously, it's the primary way of reading it. Number one, it could be lunchtime. You could eat lunch at 1. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not a bad time. It's a little late for my schedule, but I understand that normally people don't wake up at 3:45 in the morning to go to work. Number two, that could be February time. And that was meant to say Valentine's, as in Valentine's Day, the holiday which famously you go out and buy corporate-approved symbols of your love for people. And then number three, if you end it with the word 100, it means time, 0300. Yes, I'm going to let you puzzle that one out for yourself while I continue onward to 4, tee-hee. Wait, no. Tea time. That's what old white dudes yell to kids. I have personally witnessed this several times, and because I am not yet an old white dude, unlike 2 out of 3 of the dudes on this podcast, I don't understand what it means yet. But I put it in because I've heard people say it, so I wanted to put that out there just in case someone knows what's happening. I believe that will end this Times Square. Let's go to the next slide, please. We're going to talk dark times. This is a time when things got sad, like the plague or Black Fridays. My friends and I, growing up, used to refer to these moments in your life as the big sad, as in I'm in the grips of the big sad. Dark times work as well. Makes you cry. Makes your filter go black and white. Makes you look a little bit like Drake. I thought it was Drake at first when I downloaded this picture and put it in my presentation, but it's not. Aubrey Graham is his real name. He got his start on Degrassi: The Next Generation. He was in the big sad because he got shot by one of his classmates and paralyzed from the waist down. But he's not in the big sad anymore. You know why? Because he's one of the most famous rappers in the world. Somehow. Let's go to the next time slide, please. Of course, we're going to go back to dinosaur times. These are some of my favorite times because I was a dinosaur kid growing up. There were several different periods throughout this period of time. We're going to talk about the Triassic. This was early on. This was 125 million years ago, I believe, something along those lines, where it was bugs and water roly-polies. We're going to see a lot of crustaceans, a lot of arthropods, a lot of precursors to things like the horseshoe crab and trilobite, filter feeders, things that will crawl onto land and eventually become the monsters that we love, such as mostly dinosaurs in the Jurassic period. Jurassic was early on. You're talking about things like the Stegosaurus and the Ceratops. Funny story. The Stegosaurus and the Tyrannosaurus Rex are separated by more time than we are from the Tyrannosaurus Rex. There's a little trivia tidbit for you. That's real. That's a true fact. You can use it in your own trivia. We're talking about the Cretaceous. That's where the T-Rex lives. Everybody loves it. We're going to, big ferns, sharks. Sharks have lasted forever. Sharks have pretty much gone unevolved for the past few 100 million years because it's a perfect torpedo with teeth. So there you go. And then, of course, Dinotopia. When I went back to school in grade school and we had the book fair, I always went for the Dinotopia books because I was a dinosaur kid and I didn't have friends. So I read about people who had friends, and everybody on Dinotopia was friends with each other. Unless I had a minor disagreement about I don't know, there was one about, they were all about people having minor disagreements, and then they would go into the middle of the jungle, and a T-Rex would show up for about 30 minutes, and then they'd all go back and settle their problems with the conversation, which is nice. Just like the conversation we're having now, and we'll continue on the next slide. And what about medieval times? I've never been to medieval times, either the period nor the restaurant. I've gone to Renaissance fairs, which is kind of like medieval times, except the food is more expensive, probably about as good, and the joust is less intense. Depending on the run fair you go to. The Michigan one had a very intense joust. The Colorado joust is very rehearsed, which is fine. But medieval times, dinner and tournament, so, we've kind of already gone over this. Family dinner theater, stage fighting, sword fighting. You always, I think you sit in a part of the stands, and that's the knight you root for. And the knight gives someone their favor, and they get to go backstage and have sex with the knight after the show is over. And you have to do that or you can't go back. That's what Wikipedia says anyway. And I know that Wikipedia is an unreliable topic because people can edit it at any time. So it's got its own timeline of inaccuracies. And speaking of inaccuracies, let's continue with this presentation. We're going to say time is money. I am not making any money here, despite the fact that I'm spending time. That quote is from Ben Lil, Franklin, 50 Cent, and Booty Chain. I think I held the A for long enough, though I will need to check with the producers. We may need to edit in a clip of me saying it for longer if they feel that the time spent does not equal the money they spent on the name. As I don't make money over time, my perception of it is often flawed. But time is money. Money is time. Simultaneously, you have to spend money to do stuff in this system in which we've been born and serve and die. But money is also a currency you spend because if you have to go somewhere, that's 30 minutes out of your day. You're not going to get that time back. Yeah. Let's go on quick. Let's go quick. All right. Time zone conspiracies. This is the fun stuff. I think so because I'm not a crazy person. These are real. And you'd have to be crazy to think that the world was as surface level innocent as you think it is. Time zone 1. That's UK time in Big Ben. It's based on Greenwich in England. It's GMC -0:00. It's weird. It's useless. Don't worry about it in America. It doesn't, as far as you're concerned, it doesn't need to exist. Time zone 2, that's Aussie time. I think they tell it backwards. I think they're like, oi, mate, it's 34:03 in the afternoon. Or they say it backwards, the numerals are reversed. I don't know how they do that. I think it's the accent. And then time zone 3, that's mountain times. Now that you're going to think I'm talking about the United States mountain time. that is actually, time is synchronized across all mountain chains in the world. Alps, Rockies, Brokeback, like, yeah. You can see that I pinned the little thing in India, plenty of mountains down there for, you know, you can do your time. Do your time in India. It's great. Anyway, let's, I think I'm done with this. Let's go to the next slide. Cool. In conclusion, when you feel time moving, when you're aware of time, it moves slower. When you're in mountain time, it moves even slower because there's more time to spread around all over. Normally, time zones have their own time, but mountain time is just spread over. And much like this device, it can feel like you're being tortured. So when time moves slowly, just remember, just wait it out. Sometimes you just got to wait it out until that in conclusion slide. Sorry, how long did I dissociate there? Okay, yeah, start of the okay, so I'm going to present on timeline of times from the beginning of.
Well, we can go ahead and just do questions now if that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
I really
Have
think
I
that
done this
we just gotta stop. We gotta stop yours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where
Mollie's
water
was
go?
too funny for yours to continue. So
That's
we're
great.
just gonna go ahead and move to questions if that's okay.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Michael Colby, I believe you have a question.
Yeah, I have a question about booty chain.
Yes, I think that's how it's pronounced.
Now the booty chain, named after a chain that you stick inside of your booty, or is it some other? Is it like a necklace with a like booty medallion?
Is this a question?
I haven't
or a
been able to
statement?
pay. No, it's a question because I don't know. And I haven't been able to think about anything else except for what a booty chain is.
It is when, so you know how people will sometimes get their ears gauged and then have a chain running from that to like their nose or something, like on 300.
Yeah.
It's when they get their butt cheeks gauged and have a chain running between the two of them.
Yeah. Obviously.
Okay. What does that have to do with? Forget it.
It takes a very long time to get the gauges up to the appropriate size. Anyway, garlic and thyme. Let's hear from you.
Thank you very much for this enlightening presentation. You took a lot longer than you normally do, which I think was your point. So thank you. And I'm glad we have this slide still up. Now, you quoted, I think, 3 people in saying time is money. Was that because they all said at the same time? Did one of these say it first? Or, and for Michael Colby, obviously booty chain is a name. It's not a thing. It's like saying, what's a Michael Colby other than...
Well, correct, but the booty chain is a person. The booty chain is an object. Yes. And you were asking if these people said it simultaneously or in sequence?
Well, I was just wondering why you quoted 3 people saying the same quote.
All 3 of these individuals have at one point in their life famously said time is money.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I guess that makes sense then. Okay.
All right. And a question from Mollie.
On Dinotopia, did they have their own calendars, much like the ancient Mayans? Or did they use the Judeo-Christian calendar? And also, did they believe that sharing is caring?
I believe they did have some primitive form of sharing is caring. Because I think the dinosaurs are actually raised communally because they would hand out eggs to people. As far as calendar goes, I think they have their own date system. They definitely have their own script. But they might use a Judeo-Christian calendar because, as we all know, the famous image of Jesus riding into Bethlehem on the back of a velociraptor.
Yeah.
Oh, as was seen in the greatest story ever told in The Land Before Time.
Yes, and Michael Colby's t-shirt.
And my t-shirt also has Jesus riding a velociraptor.
Yes, it is. It's obviously worn enough that you can't see the gates of Bethlehem, but so
it's also Land Before Time t-shirt, so everyone's right here. Okay, well, thank you very much, D. Whatever that stands for. You've wasted enough time so that Mike Colby gets to go now, and I've given him enough time in between himself and Mollie, so he might have a chance to be funny. So if we can go ahead and bring up his slides, producers, please. Thank you.
Now, unfortunately, Mollie used up all of the anger and all of the swears from the episode. So I I don't exactly know how I'm gonna do this, but we'll figure it out. I mean, I put so much. I know these slides so well that I'll be able to figure something out without swearing or being angry about anything. Surely that'll go well for me. So my presentation is on the best ways to kill time. Now, we've heard about some ways to kill time so far tonight. Staring at the clock, staring at the wall, just sitting on the toilet, I think was one of the ways that you can kill time. I'm currently watching a baseball game. That's killing time. So there's a lot of ways that you can kill time, but we're only going to be talking about the best ways to do it with no anger and no swears. So if I could get the next slide, please. The first question you're going to ask is why? Why would we want to waste time? There's so very little time in each of our lives. Why would we want to waste any? As you can see in this chart, there's a million reasons why we would want to waste time. Time is meaningless. In all honesty, we don't need to be doing anything. If you want to take 3 days and just sit on the toilet and watch a clock, you can do that. Nobody's stopping you. You don't need to be productive all the time. You can just spend your time making graphs that don't mean anything. They don't make any sense to anyone. And that's what I did here. This chart took me a long time to make, and it doesn't mean anything. So you can do whatever you want with your time. It's yours. Next slide, please. Now, a chainsaw. It sounds like this. And that's what a chainsaw sounds like. I mean, if you wanted to, you could just sit in a tree and make chainsaw noises all day long. I don't think anybody would pay you for it. You know, people say time is money. Booty Chain famously said that time is money, and nobody's going to pay you to sit in a tree and make chainsaw noises. But if that's what you want to do, you don't need, I mean, you're in a tree. It's not like you need money for anything. Everything you need to eat is in the tree. You can eat some leaves. Some of the trees have fruit in them. You can kill a bird and eat that. And it also provides shelter from the sun and most other weather. You probably want to get out during a thunderstorm, but other than that, you can just hang out in a tree. And if nobody knows you're up there, it doesn't even need to be your tree. So yeah, chainsaw. Next slide, please. Methods 2, 3, and 4 of wasting time. You wouldn't think that these things would be similar, but I'm gonna tell you right now, they're basically exactly the same. A hammer, you know, you bonk things with a hammer. A spaceship, you're just basically bonking the atmosphere, like you would with a hammer, but on a bigger scale. And then conceptual deletion, the sound of existential nihilism is just bonking your consciousness into not feeling anything anymore, which you could also do with a hammer, or if you went up into space on a spaceship and let yourself out of the airlock. It's all the same thing. It's all a waste of time. But if you do these things correctly, there won't be much time left for you anyway. So it all works out. Next slide, please. There are a few times when time was the worst. In 3000 AD, that one band talks about how fine my great 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 granddaughter is. I don't know that specifically. I must have just gotten done bonking myself in the head with a hammer when I made this slide, because I do test out all of these time-wasting methods. So maybe I made up the band in the year 3000 AD that talks about how fine my great-great-great-granddaughter is, which is a weird thing to write a song about, and I wish that my mind wouldn't have gone there. Now, another time when time was the worst was in 1000 BC, when currency was invented. Now, the reason that we don't have enough time to do things that we would like to do, such as sit in a tree and make chainsaw noises, or throw yourself out of an airlock of a spaceship, or sit on the toilet eating raw turkey all day. The reason we can't do that stuff is because we need currency. And in 1000 BC, currency was invented, and it was the worst time that time has ever been. Now, in 2020 AD, I don't think I have to tell you the amount of bad things that happened in 2020. As far as I know, in 2016, a lot of bad things happened, and it brought us into the worst timeline. David Bowie died, and Zach Bagans destroyed the house that was covering up the portal into hell, in the demon house. And it took a long time because David Bowie was protecting all of us. But the demons did get to him. They killed him, and they were allowed to run free. It took them about 4 years to get into the amount of things that they needed to do to make our timeline terrible. They released some sicknesses. They released some Facebook advertisements that got some bad leaders elected, and it's been a shit show since then. No, wait. I'm thinking of a different timeline. I really hit myself in the hammer. The 2020. Okay, we had already gotten to the bad part in 2016. It's just been getting worse. Hammers, bad. Toilet. Next slide, please. Where do we launch our first strike? Our first trike? What are we triking? I'm sorry, but I really. Oh. Okay, so what I'm talking about here is we're going to launch a bunch of tricycles. This is what we're going to do to try to get our timeline back to the good timeline. We're going to give all of the children tricycles. We're going to get them back outside, get them to enjoy life. So the way that we're going to do that is we are going to airdrop a bunch of tricycles from a line of airplanes down onto the children. They're metal tricycles, so don't worry about the tricycles. They will survive the fall. The children are going to have to be indoors. But they'll have plenty of warning before we drop the trikes. The only thing we have to figure out is where we're going to launch the first trike. We have 3 areas that we want to drop tricycles on. One in Utah, one in Wyoming. Wyoming? What am I talking about? Wyoming, and one in North Dakota. Now, North Dakota is not pictured. Where it says North Dakota here is not North Dakota. It's somewhere else. Montana, maybe. Wyoming is, I think, down one, and Utah is southwest, or something. I really I may have hit myself too hard with the hammer. And I also am shooting diarrhea out of my butt right now. So you're going to have to excuse me for my confusion. Tricycles, drop them from airplanes. The kids will be fine. Next slide, please. Now, our opponents are... What we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out ways to waste time. And what our opponents have to say... Okay, I'm starting to get the thread back in my brain as to what I was supposed to be talking about. What our opponents have to say is that our time needs to be productive. It doesn't, but they're going to say they do. These were the people who in the 60s and 70s were hippies and are now old, rich people who think that all we need to do is pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, and we can, even though we make 5 times less than them and everything is 50 times more expensive than back then, they're going to say that we're going to be able to afford whatever we need just if we work harder. We just need to spend 24 hours of our day working and being productive. But we can't do that. We need to waste time. We need to be silly. We need to have fun. We need to sit in trees and eat birds and shoot tricycles out of spaceships. Hippies, next slide. In conclusion, I don't like time. I'm not a fan. I don't think it should be around. Our main goal in my organization is to find... This picture is of the head clock. It's like in Dracula, if you find the head vampire, all of the other vampires will just poof into dust. You just have to find that head one. Now, this is from our research. This is the main clock. And what we need to do is we need to find the clock and destroy it. And then all clocks will just turn to dust, and we'll have all the time that we need to do whatever we want. The 4 things that I talked about are the things that everybody wants to do. Everybody wants to make chainsaw noises. Everybody wants to go up into space. Everybody just wants more time to do those other 2 things that were in my previous slides. Hit themselves with hammers and something else. So I'm sorry that I got a little rambly there, but again, I was testing out all this stuff, and I also wasn't allowed to be angry or swear, which I think I did. I think I did both of those things. So thank you for listening. And if you want to join our cause and destroy time, you can email me or you can text Dylan, and we'll give you the information. Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah, I agree. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question.
Oh, good.
Yeah, Molly.
Thank you, first off, for your bravery on finally speaking out against this, long-standing issue of time and needing to do away with it. When we are dropping tricycles on Nevada or Utah or whatever state happens to be in that general area, do you think that we should consider drone trikes?
Well, the aircraft that are dropping the trikes are unmanned. So they
Oh,
are
okay.
technically drones.
Oh,
The problem with the drones so far is that they're not dropping it exactly where we want them to. And right now we're only dropping pillows to test. But once we start dropping these trikes, we need them exactly because we're only telling those small areas that the trikes are coming. So if they're off by 2 miles, there's going to be a lot of people getting just ruined by these high velocity tricycles flying from the sky. It'll be like the beginning of The Good Place when what's her face gets hit with a frozen piece of toilet from an airplane. D, you had a question.
Yes. Thank you for the presentation, and very bold not to do a character and just show your true self here. I applaud the decision.
I
now-
had a character in mind, but it was an angry and swearing character.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I used
So,
up the swearing quota.
Yeah, all the swearing was used up, and if
Mhm.
we had one more, we would get kicked off of YouTube.
Yeah.
Yes. Now I did have a question. Early on, you listed methods to kill time with. Yes, this one, and you gave audio cues for many of them because, of course, in addition to being a visual presentation, there's an audio format. I was wondering if you could provide, just for the audience who are listening to this without the visual element, what the sound of existential nihilism is.
I didn't want to because it's unpleasant. But if you're asking,
I think we're past
I'll-
unpleasant at this point, but fair.
Okay. It sounds like this.
Far more going on there than I expected from nihilism. But
Yeah.
okay.
I need to disinfect my pop screen now.
I guess I did get what I asked for. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess garlic and thyme. I have enough time for one more question.
Thank you very much. If producers can bring up, please slide. I think it's number 3. Yeah, this one. Now, in many of your presentations, you tell us how most chainsaws sound, and I don't know if it's because this one is a Daewoo, but you were a lot less animated than normal. Usually, your Black & Decker is a lot louder. I was wondering why this sound. You just didn't give it like any energy whatsoever.
Well, the Daewoos are known to be a quieter, more efficient chainsaw. The Black & Deckers are American made, so they want them to be loud and, you know, as over the top chainsaw-ish as possible. That's why you don't see a lot of Daewoos in horror movies because they're not intimidating. So as you know, I know a lot about chainsaws. I'm a chainsaw guy. I have a chainsaw collection. I use chainsaws for just about everything. So the reason that I put the Daewoo into the presentation was I didn't want to go over the top. I was hoping to not have to do any of those sound effects. I was hoping that nobody was going to ask me to do any loud, obnoxious sound effects.
Yeah.
So that's why I went with this particular chainsaw. It's my favorite for cooking, and it's my favorite for when I have something delicate in the laundry. I use the Daewoos, but otherwise, you know, if I'm outside, it's a Black & Decker. You know, it's a Husqvarna. You know, we really want those loud chainsaws.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Thank you very much. I was curious because I know you're a chainsaw guy. So
yeah, I just have one more thing to say
okay.
before we get done here. Darn.
You just couldn't help yourself.
I couldn't. I'm sorry.
Oh, geez. Okay. Perfect.
I take offense at that crass language.
Ah, crap.
Yeah, we specifically asked him to calm it down for this episode, and he just can't. So I'm really sorry about that.
I can't.
Now, with all presentations given, each member of the panel will indicate which speaker they believe deserves to win the $50,000 grant awarded from Some Nobodies Patreon account, and obviously the Collector's Nostalgia Prize, which I might not give this up, but this is once again a Star Wars New Hope book that is also a pillow, which is weird. And yeah, you can also eat your turkey on the toilet while reading. Comfortably. Now, please, I was presenter number 1, Mollie was number 2, D was 3, Mike Colby was 4. When I count to 3, please tell me who you think wins tonight's presentation showdown. In 1, 2, 3. Not sure why we're voting, but
I knew I was going to lose, but I just wanted Mollie's vote. So
you got the pity
as
vote.
far as I'm concerned, I won.
You got the pity vote. That's perfect. That's awesome. Now that's going to conclude our conference for the week. Mollie, obviously you're the winner. You're probably one of the funniest people we've ever had on the show. You're funnier than at least Michael Colby on his worst days. So thank you very much. But as winner, you get to tell us what our topic of next week's conference is going to be on.
Ooh. Anything?
Whatever you want.
Okay. Classic films.
Oh, nice. Okay, perfect. Well, my name has been Zack Wiseman, and my payment for doing this is to make someone give us our new outgoing slogan. Mike Colby, I would love it if you could take the time to give me a new slogan.
PowerPoint me to the moon.
Hey, not bad. Excellent. Now, Mollie, thank you very much. If you wanted people to come find you, if you wanted them to know anything about you, you have any upcoming shows or anything, where can people go? I put some links in the show notes for people, but where would you want to send some people?
You can check me out on Twitter at Mollie Schmolly and on Instagram at Mollie Heckerling. We recently had our web series Ratso get uploaded on streaming with Trauma. So that's cool. And I'll also be doing the Vermont Comedy Festival December 1st through the 4th. So that's what I got going on. Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
Oh, no, honestly, thank you very much for taking your time and doing this stupid show with us. Having real comedians on really means a lot to us, and it really boosts us and makes at least Michael Colby try to be funnier. So thank you. Speaking of which, Michael Colby, if anybody wanted to droll onto your voice and just zoom out and go to sleep, where would they go?
You would probably go to you'd probably go to your favorite podcast application, and you would type in Jack Billings Presents, and there you will find Jack Billings Presents Me and My Neighbor Michael, a scripted / improv comedy podcast about an alternate universe, Reading, Ohio. And then you'll also find Jack Billings Presents Haunted Apartment Complex, which is a completely scripted, alternate to the alternate universe scripted comedy about an alternate Reading, Ohio, where I'm a ghost and there's vampires and werewolves and Frankenstein's made out of 72 people. And we do a morning radio talk show. It's a weird show, but I'm also a lot less rambly on there because it's completely scripted. So I get right to the point.
Nice, perfect. As far as me and Dylan, obviously, if you want to see anything Some Nobodies do, just look at anything, open up anything, type in Some Nobodies. You'll see some cool things like Silicon Angels, IT phone calls from a sex robot shop. You'll see some great writing that Dylan did on some Create Your Own Podventure Season 1. You'll see a lot of cool stuff, award-winning shows, No Time to Binge. That is not that stupid drawing again. You're going to see a whole lot of stuff. If you want to see Dylan on Twitter, you can find him at Vorpal Words. Other than that, Dylan, did I miss anything whatsoever?
Nah.
Because I really enjoy the works of Bruce Lee. But he said, knowledge will give you power, but character respect. And really, I think everything that I've talked about.
Thank you for watching PowerPoint Showdown. Today's winner will receive a $50,000 grant courtesy of Some Nobodies Patreon. Congratulations on your win! Join us next week for another showdown. Thanks for providing that big